So we're going through this really interesting herbal renaissance. I've talked about this before, and for the most part, I'm all for it, right? I think the more that we can encourage people to engage with plants on whatever level they do, that's great, because it's very hard, even for the most calloused of hearts, to engage with plants intentionally, especially in the way that we talk about it around here, without it bringing us back into partiveness, right? Into an animistic experience of the world as made up of an infinite number of relationships where everything we do nudges the wholeness of things deeper and deeper into states of harmony or chaos, right? So the herbal renaissance, with the exception of a few things that I find incredibly problematic, I think it's great. I think it's cool that people are talking about it. You know, it's interesting how this renaissance has affected folks that have been doing this work for, you know, let's say longer than 10 years. It's really interesting how that's happening, but maybe we'll save that for a different class/rant. But what I want to talk about today in regards to this herbal renaissance is one aspect of how things have gotten really problematic and have really gotten knotted up. So in this week's Free Friday community class, we're going to do a little bit more of a chat again, and maybe a little bit of a rant. So if you like those, you're in for a treat. I don't want to make this super long because it's more an invitation for dialogue, right? I really want to understand what you all are thinking and feeling and how you're experiencing this. This topic has come to my attention not because I saw it myself, but because peers in this work have said, hey, we're seeing this really interesting pattern. And that pattern is the use of this particular term right here. And I'm not even going to say it because everything that's vocalized here, you know, gets read and gets sort of plowed into the algorithm. And so I really am, for the time being, going to try to not use this term anymore. I'm definitely not going to write it anywhere, but I think even speaking it on YouTube it could be problematic. So how this all got reverse engineered is really smart people said, every time I use this term on a post, on a video, on a blog, on an article, on any of the platforms, my usual reach, like the number of people that normally see that post, goes down by like 80%. So, you know, there are just people who look at the analytics and they look at the structure of things. They have minds for that. I do not. I wish that I did, because I feel like, you know, I'd probably be better off, but I just do what I do, right? So when they saw that and then started looking into it, there was this realization that that particular term, in the last few years especially, has started to take on a meaning that is different than how folks like myself have been using it for 20 plus years. Generally, I think about this term as meaning exactly what it says, right? We're interacting with plants. We're working with plants to engage with medicine, and that medicine approaches all levels of beings. It's a nice word, right? Because it tells you what you get, other than there was this one time I did a workshop under this name, and one person was really disappointed when they showed up because they thought the workshop was about how to make medicine at home, how to craft different remedies for plants, right? How sweet is that? They thought we were going to be making, you know, sprays and things that you could use with your house plants when they're feeling sick. So other than that one person, that one time, all of us hear this term and we know, oh, this is what that means. So now what's happened is it started to take on a different meaning, and it's become a placeholder, so that people in the know, people in these particular circles online, when they see this term used, they know that it means one of several things. That it means the use of plants that are controlled substances, right? Plants that their use for recreational or whatever purposes is illegal in certain places, right? Lots of different plants you can't legally possess in certain places, right? Cannabis is like an obvious one in a lot of places, but there are more. There are other ones. So I'm cool with, and I can jive with that. Like, let's use this term as a placeholder so that we're not getting ourselves in trouble when we talk about these plants that somehow have come under the regulation of human laws. The one that gets sticky for me and that I don't love is when the word becomes a placeholder for people co-opting, misrepresenting, and offering plant-centric ritual services that are part of closed ancestral or indigenous practices. And that's actually where we're seeing the term now. That when we see this term, you basically know that you're going to be hanging out probably with some, American person who is gathering up a group of people, charging them a lot of money to sit in a circle and ingest a particular herb or combination of herbs, right? To facilitate a particular experience. And I this is not going to be a popular opinion, but it's an opinion that's just not for me. I have never experienced that those plants want to be exploited that way. I've never experienced that the wisdom keepers of those plant traditions want to sell DIY kits to people through Etsy so they can do these things for their friends and family. Some at some warehouse in a city. That's just not how I think those traditions go. And if you've been around for a while, there are even certain plants that, while I love and respect them, and they even grow wild where I live, I have a relationship. My relationship of reciprocity with those plants is one of distance, right? Because I understand how those plants have been a sacred and integral part of plant work for a particular group of people for a very, very long time, and that folks are misusing the virtues and the folklore and the practices around those plants out of context. The plants don't like it, and their human stewards don't like it, so we just don't do it, right? And I don't care what the plant is. You can find a more ethical, a more heart-centered, a more reciprocal iteration of working with a plant that will get you to the same ends. There's no reason to think that only one plant can cleanse a space. Only one plant can uplift the energy of a person's energetic field. Only one plant can open up the inner vision so that we can, glimpse into the spirit world. For there to be one plant on the whole planet that does that makes no sense. It discredits that every ancestral tradition in the world has various plants that do all these things. So we don't even have to engage with those plants. Our relationship with them can be one of not engaging. That's relationship too. Just like with humans, I had a conversation with a student the other day who was saying, well, sometimes I hate this concept of sacred reciprocity because there are people in my life that have been terrible, and I don't want to be in reciprocity with them. I don't want to be in sacred relationship with them. To which I replied, avoidance, boundaries, even just straight up ghosting somebody is a form of relationship. You are relating to them in a particular way. You're reciprocating to them in a particular way through not, right? Like sometimes the right reciprocity is non-engagement. So we can do that with plants too. And I know that for some people, they don't like to hear that because they say, oh, all the plants are here for everybody and we can do whatever we want. And to some degree, I would agree with that. But you never see those same people who say that working with a plant in a way that the plant is inspired directly for them. They are always working with the plant in a mimic of how some closed practice or ancestral practice has been working with that plant. So it kind of, the whole argument eats itself, right? So I think we've come to a point where the internet is so vast and things happen so quickly, and we're going through an herbal renaissance, and everybody's a shaman and everybody's an herbalist and all of that, that there are going to be certain terms like this one and maybe some other ones that, as much as we love them and as much as we feel closeness with these terms, and we've been using them for 2 decades plus, we have to let them go because they've moved into a space that we choose not to align ourselves to. Unless you do align yourself to that, then no problem, right? So we have to go back to these terms that maybe are a little more verbose, maybe a little more flowery and poetic. I will always lean on terms like spiritual herbalism for as long as I can. Plant spirit work, I feel like that's probably the one that's next up on the chopping block. Verdant sorcery, plant sorcery for as long as we can. And we always hope that things will come full circle and that there will be a reclamation point where we can say, look, all of these things that people do under the banner of this term, maybe there's some value in it for those people, but there is a better way with more respect and more integrity and more ethics and a deeper connection to the heart of working with these plant spirits than is often being presented. So I guess where this all goes is wanting to know your personal experience of this term, how you've thought about it, how you see it being used, what you think when you hear it. If you think that none of it matters and that we should be able to use whatever term we want and not fear, being silenced or shut down by the artificial intelligence powers that rule the internet now, which is so weird, but it's true. It's all very interesting to me. And next week we will get back to classes, but this week I wanted to open up this discussion about this term and see what you all thought. So use the comments below. Let's get into it and see where it takes us. With so many blessings of peace and plenty. I'll see you soon.